Hi, I'm Ann Hood, and I am going to talk to you about the 5 things I learned about writing memoir. I have to start with a story first. Like most people who want to become writers when they're kids, you, of course, want to write a novel or an adventure story. When you're 7 or 8, you're not thinking about writing memoir, of course. So I read Little Women and Nancy Drew books and decided I have to write books like that. Fiction, novels, things that are exciting, family drama, books in which people die willy-nilly and problems are solved along with their crimes. So I did that. I grew up. I went to work as a TWA flight attendant after college, so I'd have the adventures to put into my novels. And over the course of a few years, I wrote my first novel somewhere off the coast of Maine. When it was about to come out, I was invited to a cocktail party and I was gabbing on with someone about my job as a flight attendant, which I had stopped at that point. And he stopped me mid-story and he said, you don't know this, but I'm an editor for the style section of the Washington Post. And if you write that down exactly as you told me, I'll publish it on Sunday. Now, it was long enough ago that I don't actually remember how I managed to do that and get it to him because this was before email. It was even before fax. But somehow I typed, I'm a terrible typist, by the way, but I typed this thing up exactly as I told him and got it in his hands before Saturday, which was the deadline. And sure enough, that Sunday, it was published in the Sunday Washington Post style section. It actually got quite a big response. Many, many, many letters about being a flight attendant and the fact that a flight attendant could write about being a flight attendant. In fact, so much response that Doubleday's publicist, Barb Berg, who I was working with on my novel, called me in for a meeting. And she said, Anne, you should be writing memoir and essays. And I actually started to laugh. I said, who cares about my life? Nothing has happened to me. It's not that interesting. And she raised her finger and she said, Mark me, you should be writing memoir. I really did brush it off. I mean, it was an internal eye roll at best. Well, guess what, folks? I've written 5 memoirs. When I sat in her office and said nothing interesting had happened to me, I did believe that, but so much had happened to me. I had grown up in an immigrant Italian American household with kind of a crazy grandmother. There's a lot to say about that, for one. My father had gotten sick. There was a lot to say about me going to try to find him a miracle cure. I had lost my brother when I was 25. He was my only sibling, and he died suddenly in a household accident. Well, grief is one of the biggest topics people address when they write memoir. I think we often don't realize all that we have in our lives that make for interesting stories. Instead, and here's one of the things I'll tell you in my class, because I can't tell you all 5 because then you won't come to the class. But here's one thing I want to tell you. A memoir isn't an autobiography. And when Barb Berg told me that day that that's what I should be writing, I thought she meant my whole life story, which frankly wasn't that interesting, but it had these moments of something extraordinary. And so the first thing I learned was that writing a memoir is almost like writing a short story. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it is because you are just looking at one part of your life. Think about Patti Smith. Patti Smith could write an autobiography. She's a rock and roll star. She's had a great, exciting life, but she writes memoir. She wrote one about her relationship with the photographer Robert Mapplethorpe, and she wrote one about the loss of her husband. Memoir. As the writer Danny Shapiro says, when you write memoir, you don't look out every window in your house. You look out one window. So I'm going to help you find the one window that will help you write your memoir and of course, 4 other things.